this is the amazing thing, though. I do this, and I get all this hate mail for it. And the amazing thing is that I want you to visualize this. I want you to visualize two newspaper headlines. One is, man smears Vegemite on cracker. And the other newspaper headline is, 100 million people believe that cracker is their Lord Jesus. Which one should people be outraged about? People really shocked and horrified and wondering about the rationality of the universe. I think eating a cracker is something that's pretty trivial. And one of the purposes of doing these kinds of things, one of the purposes of being bold and getting out there and making these statements is to make people aware of the fact that, yeah, eating a cracker, nothing. It's meaningless. Especially when it's a cracker that tastes that bad. Man, I still need to get this out of no. It's really simple. But I have not met anybody yet who will get me into an interview and they'll ask me, they'll all ask me this. They'll ask me, well, how dare you be so rude to all those Catholics out there? And they never ask me, how dare all those Catholics believe in something so inane as that a cracker is actually Jesus? And that's what we have to work on, is we have to get everyone thinking and asking these difficult questions. Why do people believe in God? It's a very silly thing to do. I expect you guys to give me the answer. So spend a couple years working on that. I will expect a report. Let's say 2012. You guys will be at a conference and I'll be listening, and you're going to explain to me why this belief of Catholics in the sacredness of a piece of bread is not headline news all over the world. Okay, so what I want to do now is just open it up. Ask any questions you want. If you have questions, yes?
Well, along that line of reasoning, I was wondering if you'd read Jeff Charlotte's book, The Family, the secret power at the heart of America, the secret fundamentalism.
It's a beautiful example, yeah, that you know, there are all these people who believe that the cracker is Jesus, and that's silly and stupid. But there are also people who believe that the power of Jesus commands them to do anything they want in the pursuit of power, and that's stupid, scary.
Well, that was my point. I started reading a book about the Exclusive Brethren on the way down on the plane this morning. And I know that they're everywhere else in the world too, but I remember organising for the Green Party during the 2004 election, not 2003 it must have been, and they were running, though they reject politics, they were lobbying our Prime Minister and getting a meeting hand to face with the man, which is not something that what is it, 18% of Australians that identify as secular, that we have absolutely no power over this kind of thing. Yes. And so it's very easy to see where the money comes into it. I was wondering what your thoughts are about organising against entrenched power like the Catholic Church, like the Dominionists in C Street, etc.
It's really tough to do. If you talk to the atheist community, what you find is that people just don't have any problem organizing against the Catholic Church. It's an insane organization with a lot of very weird beliefs. And I personally think that one of the things we have to do is open people's minds and make them think about what they're being told in church. That things like transubstantiation it's a stepping stone to greater and more dangerous insanities. That what people are taught is to accept and believe whatever their preachers tell them, and that translates into suddenly accept and believe whatever the politicians tell them, as long as they do it in the name of God. And pretty soon you've got crazy people like George Bush running the country. So yeah, it's one of these things we got to attack it right at the foundation. We should all be very, very skeptical of religion, and that most particularly includes people who participate in religion, but they're hard to reach. Yes?
One thing that I grapple with is Islam. It's all fine. Catholics don't tend to want to kill us if we sort of, do that to the host, or because I was brought up a Catholic, I still get emotionally weird about stuff like that, even though intellectually I am an atheist. But you know, the Quran, they had a huge dust up in Malaysia over the word Allah, you know.
Right.
So, you know, it's all fine to, you know, talk, you know, insult, well, sort of offend Catholics, but how do you deal with Islam? They kill people. You know, the militant Islam.
Yes. Well, you know, my fundamental beef with religion isn't that they kill people, because I think that most religious people are good people who think well of their neighbors and want to do their best in the world for themselves and their families. That most religious people, and this includes Muslims, really don't want to hurt anybody. You know, they're human beings, and so I think it's often misplaced to say, well, we've got to get rid of this religion because it has people doing evil things, when most people are not doing evil things. It's a rare exception where they find it.
I'm not saying single out Islam, but I'm saying all the chat is always about the Christian religions, and they're sort of, you know, white middle class, you know. But we, you know, when it comes to, because you know, the commentators always having a go at the Catholics, and that's fine, but they never go Islam, and people accuse them of going, well, if you said that about Muhammad, you'd be dead, you know.
Pat Condell.
The arguments I have against that, though, is first of all, it's not because I have a particular contempt for Christianity or anything like that. I think Islam is just as insane as Catholicism. But for most of us, this is a problem of our home. This is what's going on around us. And here in Australia and also in America, Muslims are a real tiny minority, and they're not very threatening. So I agree that the Muslims...
But how do we support the Muslims in their countries to sort of take up the fight? You know, it'd be pretty frightening in Saudi Arabia, for instance, you know, to have a Freethought University alliance there.
If I were...
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, no, if I were the ruler of the Western world,
We vote
my
you.
approach would be not to condemn Islam or Muslims or Catholics or Protestants, but to be unashamed about stating the truth about their religion, which is, it's not the truth. But the other thing is to welcome them into our communities. That one of the surest ways to get people to abandon dangerous beliefs, like that they should behead somebody if they defend their religion, is to remove economic insecurities, to make them full members of the community of nations. And that's a real problem with Islamic nations right now, is that they have such a huge separation of rich and poor, and people are desperately destitute. That's the real barrier there. The other thing, though, is you know, the Catholics are just as dangerous as Muslims. That one of the responses, most common responses I got to my desecration of the communion wafer was people writing in and telling me that they were reporting me to the local Islamists and urging them to come chop my head off. That, you know, the Catholics, you know, the fangs of Catholicism have been pulled in the Western world, right? That what we don't burn atheists at the stake anymore, not in this part of the world. But you can tell that they're still kind of wishing, many of them are still kind of wishing that they could invoke that power. And so they do things like say, well, yeah, the Muslims would chop your heads off. But at the same time, though, the funny thing is, I desecrated the Quran at the same time I did the communion wafer. And I got a grand total of 2 emails from Muslims about that. I got over 15,000 from Catholics about desecrating the communion wafer. And of those 2 letters I got from Muslims, one was saying, well, you didn't really do anything to our religion, you know, it was just a book. It was a translation of the Quran, it doesn't count, etc., etc. So it was kind of a rationalization, which is what I expected from
But they won't let a woman handle the Quran, though. That's what you need. You need a woman to actually hold the Quran. Then you're in trouble.
Oh yeah, my wife would love me if I dragged her into this. Yes, dear, please take this and do something wrong. And then, of course, the other letter I got from a Muslim said, "Go for it, do more." They said we've got to weaken the power of these Islamic nutcases on the Muslim community as well. Yes.
I agree that most Muslims aren't Islamists, but there are Islamists.
Yes.
And they exist in Australia. And they're actually quite dangerous, and they're not poor. They're actually quite rich, and they're very well educated. And I would say that out of the Islamists, which are a small proportion of Muslims, there's an even smaller proportion of jihadists,
Yes.
and they're the violent Islamists.
Yes.
But you do have another branch of Islamism that is educated and it's rich, and it is putting pressure on in lots more subtle ways than by wielding
Right.
an axe on New Year's Day.
Oh yes, this is a common problem of religions, is that they also set up these social hierarchies.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody at the top. And they're not the ones that are flying planes and buildings. It's guys down below. So they use these hierarchies to get patterns of behavior out of the lower ranking members of the group that the rich and wealthy ones at the top would never consider doing themselves, but love to see the losers beneath them do.